At Vine, we speak with hundreds of sales organizations on a monthly basis. One of the things that almost every single one of them wants to do is to be more data-driven. So sales directors, VP sales, head of sales ops, head of revenue ops, they all have one thing in common. They're telling us that they want to be more data-driven and they need to be more data-driven. So we decided that we'll give you a quick overview on data-driven B2B sales, and I'll try to explain the basic concepts of it in 15 minutes, like why it's important, how to get started, and what are some of the do's and don'ts with this topic. So let's get started. Let's start with the importance of it. So why it actually matters. There's plenty of reports stating that it's good for the business. One of them was done by McKinsey 2 years ago, and basically the outcome is that companies that are data-driven in B2B sales, they simply grow faster and are also more profitable. So those are, of course, good reasons, and even CFOs are listening to that type of reasons. But what's the definition of it, like what it actually means to be data-driven in B2B sales? I think it's all about tying data analytics together with sales process. And many of you have heard the saying that sales is both an art and a science. And in a way, you can think that if those relationships between salespeople and buyers are the art of sales, then the data is the science part of it. And you need to collect that data and insights in every interaction that you have with existing and potential customers, and then use those insights to inform these sales-related decisions and processes. Also, on the slide, you can see sales velocity formula. That's one very simple way to understand some of the key factors that actually have an impact on your sales results in a certain time period. It's called sales velocity formula. So you look at number of opportunities, you have a certain average deal value and win rates. And if you multiply those and you divide that by the length of sales cycle, you get your sales results in a certain time period. And that's why it's called sales velocity formula. It's good to know that you can also apply the same formula for different type of go-to-market motions. If you have an outbound sales team, then maybe the terms you use is number of meetings, hit rate, average deal value. But if you do more inbound or PLG, then instead of meetings, maybe you talk about number of leads, number of signups. Maybe you have many different conversions between those steps, and you have some sort of average deal size and some sort of length of that sales cycle. And then you do the same math. You multiply the number of leads, the deal size and conversion, you divide it by sales cycle, and you get total sales for a certain time period. So that's a good starting point. But where do you get that data if you want to be data-driven? So one way to look at it is to divide sort of the data types or sources into 3 different categories. First one is operational data, typically something your sales team and account managers collect when they speak and engage and interact with customers and prospects. And they typically store that information into CRM, sometimes in the ERP systems. So this type of operational data includes things such as activity data, meeting notes, opportunities, deal values, some reasons for won cases, some reasons for lost cases, and so on. So something salespeople and account managers typically store in the CRM. And of course, it's also possible to collect some of this data automatically while you interact with prospects and customers. Then second one, behavioral data, often collected in marketing automation platforms or content management systems. All the engagement of potential buyers and existing users with your content. So it could be emails that go out, it could be landing pages on the website, it could be ads, certain forums on the website, blogs, videos, proposals, and other materials that you send to your prospects and customers. So that's behavioral data, how these individuals are engaging with the digital content you have created. And you typically store that in the marketing automation and email platforms, and some of it is collected by the website analytics platform you have in use. And then third one is external data. So, for example, Vainu would fall into this category, that companies often use external data to understand total addressable markets. They also use it to understand their ideal customer profile and also buyer personas. And sometimes it includes also like trigger data, sort of significant company events like decision maker changes, for example. And it could also mean external data such as third-party intent data. So operational data, behavioral data, external data, and you typically store this type of information in different places, and you try to integrate them together so that you have one single source of truth and really a 360-degree view on prospects and customers. Important to highlight that being data-driven is not only for new business, but it can also it can be applied to customer success, marketing, partner channel sales, and even, of course, if you do product-led growth, it should say product-led and not product-lead growth. But important that you can apply it to many different functions. So new business, outbound, as mentioned, of course, quite easy to do so. If you do an inbound motion, same thing. There are lots of data points that are useful. Partner channel sales, marketing definitely can be data-driven. When you work with existing customers, when you focus on retention, there's plenty of data points you can use. If it's about identifying upsell or cross-sell opportunities, same thing. There's plenty of data points that can be useful, and you can be data-driven there. And then also product-led growth, when you collect lots of also engagement data, how people engage with the products. That's important there. Then we put together 7 steps how to easily get started with this data-driven B2B sales. And we have one example slide for every single one of them. So first step is to understand your current metrics and also to set some clear goals and objectives, what you want to improve. So I think a starting point is that you, for example, calculate and collect the data so that you understand your current sales velocity formula, how many opportunities you create, what's the average deal value, what's your current win rate, how long is the sales process, and so on. Or if you have a different type of pipeline, you like often when you have inbound leads, for example, you can track conversion between each step, how many leads you get, how many discovery meetings you have with those leads, how many meetings you end up having, how many proposals are you sending out, how many deals you close out of those proposals, and so on. And then the objective needs to be very, very clear and important, that you don't try to improve every single thing at the same time, but you could start by having a goal such as that you want to see an increase, 20% increase in average deal value, and your plan is to achieve that by focusing on the ICP companies only. Second step is to define that ICP so that you know the type of customers you want to go after. So you can use, of course, company attributes when you define your ICP, but also important to look at buyer persona and sometimes timing. When it comes to company attributes, the 3 most common criteria: industry, location, and company size. Many companies use those 3 to define their ICP, but there's plenty of other opportunities as well. You might look at the technologies they have implemented. You might look at the group structure. You might look at the business units they have, maybe even specific keywords they have on the website. Maybe you look at the phase of the journey they're in. Is it a startup, scale up, growth company, or very modern company, or more old school company? So plenty of company attributes to consider. And then buyer persona, typically the type of titles you go after, what are the functions where you have the best and most appealing use cases. And sometimes also the timing is important. It might be that you sell your services to companies that are going through a certain significant change. Maybe you only go after companies that have recently been acquired, or companies that are just hired new decision makers. Maybe your services are very useful, especially in those moments. And then you could also include timing in your ICP definition. A good way to get started is to look at your existing most successful customers that you have and what are the things they have in common. Number 3, clear CRM guidelines. And this is very important. So everybody needs to follow those guidelines. You want to have very rich and accurate data in the CRM if you want to be data-driven. So the mentality should be that if it's not in the CRM, it doesn't exist, so that it's the single source of truth regarding customer and prospect data. And make no compromises. So it's not really up to a salesperson to decide if they use it in a certain way. It's a company decision, and everybody needs to follow those guidelines. Important that you give clear goals and guidelines for people so that they know what are the data points you need in the CRM after each interaction with a prospect or client. So for example, people know what they need to do after every meeting they complete with a customer. And of course, you can automate many of these data collection processes as well. Then segment and personalize the outreach. And here I want to highlight that it's not only for new business, but also for existing customers. On the new business side, you might personalize based on account potential, like VIP accounts, key accounts, and other ICP accounts. But you can also personalize by industry, by use case, by function, and many other things. When you work with existing customers, if the goal is to upsell, maybe customer health score is the way to personalize and segment revenue potential. Could be one, certain usage trends, what are the features they're using at the moment? Is there some indicators that they could use additional features? And also, what is the phase of the customer journey they're in at the moment? Well, if you mainly focus on retention, making sure that you have as high renewal rates as possible, then again, customer health score could be good. Some usage, red flags, decision-maker changes, competitor engagement. Those are example data points that are valuable when you implement data-driven B2B sales on the customer side as well. Then important to have clear ownership. Historically, it's often been head of sales, VP sales, sometimes sales ops director has been responsible for all this. But since we want to apply this to not only to new business, but also marketing and customer success on the commercial side, our recommendation is that you have RevOps team or RevOps person, so revenue operations individual who owns all this. So they work very closely with new business, customer success, marketing, and even finance and product to have very good understanding how the go-to-market engine works, and they make sure that the data is being collected and those insights are being implemented when the sales process is being developed. At some point, you also need to invest in technology to do this effectively. Maybe you have seen the slide before where you have tons of logos of technology vendors, and that picture is getting more and more crowded every single year. So there's plenty of opportunities. Some of the most common categories to keep in mind: CRM, of course, marketing automation, sales intelligence and data enrichment tools such as Vino. There are separate customer success platforms, sales content management platforms. Sometimes you use a term digital sales rooms that you use when you send out collaterals and documents and proposals to customers, different type of sales analytics and productivity tools, website analytics, and also if you use a separate tool to orchestrate the sales outreach or the tool you use to run your sales sequences, there's also plenty of data points being stored in those systems. And then the question is, of course, how you integrate, and if you want to have a separate cloud data warehouse where you store everything, or is the CRM the main point where all the relevant data points should ultimately end up to. And then lastly, in the first step, you set some clear goals. It's important that you track progress. So if the goal was to improve average deal size by 20%, important that you keep track of it. And my recommendation is also to create some real-time dashboards that you can share with everyone in the company so that it's very visible for everyone how the company is doing, and are we becoming more data-driven, and is it actually moving the needle when it comes to sales results. Here's a checklist that you can use to see what's the starting point, like how data-driven you are at the moment. asking these questions, you can ask these questions from yourself, or you can speak with your colleagues. Is it easy to find answers for these questions, like what's the average deal size? What was the net revenue retention last quarter? How does our hit rate differ from industry to industry? How many first meetings do you need to complete to get one proposal out or to get one deal in the books? So is it easy to find answers for these questions that will reveal you what's the starting point when it comes to being data-driven? And the end goal, of course, is that you have a well-oiled data-driven sales machine. And as mentioned in the first slide, plenty of reports stating that the companies that are data-driven, they grow faster and they're more profitable. But it's also more fun to be in sales when the company is data-driven, because you'll start seeing that you end up being at the right place at the right time with the right type of messaging more often when the data is being used. So even though salespeople are very important, and as mentioned, those relationships are the art of sales, but then data can be the science piece, and it helps you to be very successful in sales. And that's, of course, very good for you as a salesperson, but also very good for the buyer, because they have more meaningful interactions with potential vendors. So that's really it. B2B, data-driven B2B sales explained in 15 minutes. Hopefully you found it interesting. You can visit the website if you want to get more templates or examples. We have ebooks about the best sales tools and technologies. We have Excel tracking sheets. We have CRM playbook templates, and lots of useful resources for you if you want to get started and be more data-driven in B2B sales. Thank you for joining us, and all the best for the sales efforts.